All right, class. Hope you're enjoying a snow day, and hope you're not too mad at me for telling you to watch the video. But this is going to help you out, going to enable you to learn some things and take advantage of the time, and hopefully also enjoy a lot of that snow day. All right, we are lesson 10.3 histograms. And so histograms, what are they? Well, we'll get to them in a minute. Before we get to them, we've got to talk about a frequency distribution. A frequency distribution. So what a frequency distribution does is it displays how many times each piece of data occurs. It displays how many times each piece of data occurs. Now be careful. It looks a little bit like a stem and leaf plot. They do look a little bit like a stem and leaf plot, but that's not what they are. And so you have to be careful. They are not a stem and leaf plot, and you cannot treat them that way. Notice that on the left we have the data, and so the data is an 11, an 8, a 5, and a 4. That's the data for this frequency distribution. On the right you have this F. The F is the frequency, or how often it occurs. How often that piece of data occurs. So be careful with a frequency distribution. Now, one of the benefits of a frequency distribution is it's very, very easy to read the mode. The mode is very, very, very easily recognizable. And you can see we have a frequency of 4 for what data? A 5. So our mode is a 5. So that's an advantage here of a frequency distribution. You can easily read the mode of a frequency distribution. All right, be careful. The median is still the middle piece of data. And to help you, I'm going to list out all the data. We have 111. We have 2 8s. There are 4 5s. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are 2 4s. So that's our data. All right, so let's figure out how many pieces of data we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of data. So where would you find the mode if there are 9 pieces of data? Well, or I'm sorry, the median. So again, hopefully you're thinking median and middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, that 5th piece of data, it's actually that 5 right there is the median. And so the mode is 5. The median is 5. All right, hopefully we all remember how to do the range. Highest piece of data minus the lowest piece of data. That's pretty easy. That's a 7. And the mean, of course, we're going to have to add up all of the data and divide by the number of pieces of data. If you want to do that on your own, go ahead and pause the video. You can add them up, see if you get the correct number. All right, so when you add them up, the sum of the data is 55. There are 9 pieces of data, and we're always rounded to 1 decimal point, so we got 6.1 would be the mean. A frequency distribution. All right, be careful. It is not a stem and leaf plot. The left side is the data, and the right side is how often that piece of data occurs. A frequency distribution. All right, let's take a look at this second scenario here. Let me get rid of my shade. Go a little bit higher for you here. Okay, so here we want to make a frequency distribution table for the data listed below. Now this is the table has a little bit more to it than what I just showed you. It has the data all the way to the left. It's got a place for the tally. That's your count. So that's just your count. Okay. It's got a frequency. How many times does that piece of data occur? And then the last column is the product. You're actually going to multiply the data times the frequency. Okay. So that's what's involved in a frequency table. The way I like to do these is I like to start off with the highest piece of data. So I see 100 is the highest, so I'm going to write that in. And I see 1 of them, 2 of them, I'm doing my tallies, 3 of them, 4 of them. All right, so what is the frequency? 4. And I can go ahead and do my product right now if I want. And probably should, let me do my frequency in red here. And we can go back. I'm going to finish the product in black. So you're just taking 4 times 100, and that's 400. And our hundreds are done. Okay, I'm looking for the next highest piece of data. And again, I'm looking through, and I see that it is a 95. So 95 will come next. There's one of them. There's a second. And there's a third. So I have 3, going back to my red here. I have 3 95s. Again, I can multiply my 3 times my 95, and that's a 285. And I'm just working my way through the data. All right, next highest piece of data. The check marks really help. There are no more 9s left, so it looks like 87 is next. So 87, I've got one of them. There's a second, and there's a third. So I have 3 87s. And again, I'll take my calculator. I'm going to multiply 3 times 87, and that's a 261. All right, next piece of data. What have I got? There's some 82s, and 82 is next. All right, so there's one 82. There's a second 82. There's a third 82. There's a fourth 82. There's a fifth 82. So we've got 5 82s. Go ahead and multiply that out. For the product here, 5 times 82, and that's a 410. All right, rolling through the data. Next highest piece of data looks to be, there's just a 78 left, right? That's all I see. So I see 178, and everything else is checked. Frequency is 1. Product is 78. Now, what we like to do a lot of times is do a total column here. So you don't need to total the tally because we're going to total the frequencies, and it's the same number. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, and 1 is 16. We have 16 pieces of data. And then we're going to go ahead and get our calculator out, and we are going to total up all the data. So just grab your calculator and total up the data. And I've got to do that myself right now. So I'm doing that as I speak. There's the 410 plus the 78, and I got 1,434. 1,434. Okay, there is your frequency distribution table. All right, now notice a lot of frequency distributions just involve the data and the frequency. Okay, the tally is because you're making the table, and the product is just a nice thing to have there on the end. Okay, so remember, frequency distribution allows us to easily see the mode. What occurs most often? That's easily the 82, right? Oh, sorry, left my purple on there. Not a big deal. Let's go to the range next. Range is a whole lot easier to figure out. We'll go to the right here, and what would be the range? And hopefully you're thinking highest minus lowest, and that's a 22. Okay, the median. Remember, we have to figure out how many pieces of data do I have? And the answer is 16. So I need to average the 8th and 9th. So the 8th and the 9th pieces of data would be the average. Now be careful. To find the 8th and the 9th, you can list all the data in order if you'd like, or you can use the frequency column. So let me show you what I mean. I'll try to illustrate it so you can follow what I'm doing. I need to find the 8th and 9th piece of data because, again, there are 16. That means the 8th and the 9th are the middle 2 pieces of data. So watch, I'm going to go high to low. All right, I'm at 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, look, the 8th and the 9th are both contained in this 87. So what you would end up doing is averaging 87 plus 87. Now, you would never do that, but I'm just trying to show you that indeed the median would be 87. Now, you might say, can you only go high to low? And the answer is no. Whoops, erasing too much there. Well, that was great. Let me get rid of all this. We'll just leave it there. So you can do it the other way. Again, I need the eighth and ninth. I can go from low to high. So watch, here's 1 and 5 more, 6. This would be the seventh, but then again, the eighth and the ninth is within that 87, and I can do it that way. Okay, so our median is an 87. Last thing is to do the mode. Now the mode, or the mean, I'm sorry, which is the average, and that's easy. Right here is the total of our data, and right here are the number of pieces of data. So 1,434 divided by 16, and this thing ends up exactly 89.625, so we'll leave it to that exact number, 89.625. Okay, a frequency table. Frequency table. All right, so let's get on now to a histogram. Histogram. So remember, a histogram, or remember, let me explain what a histogram is. You can see an illustration of one below here. And histograms are a little bit different. Now, our histogram here would have done a whole lot better if they would have labeled their axes. And they should have, and they didn't. So this down here, the horizontal axis are the scores. And this vertical axis is the frequency. Okay? So it's the frequency. So you can see up above is listed the actual scores, and I'll explain that in a moment. So let's go ahead and fill in the blanks here. A histogram is a type of bar graph, and it's used to display a frequency distribution. Used to display a frequency distribution. All right, so let's see if we can interpret the data. If you look at the actual histogram, notice this first column. The data is a 1. And how many scores of 1 do we have? 1, 2. There are 2 ones. You follow? So the histogram is telling you again how frequent each one is. How many scores of 2 do we have? Well, you can see there are 5 scores of 2. And by the way, it's really clear to see which bar goes the highest. And so what would the 2 also be? The 2 would be the mode, right? What's the most frequent occurring piece of data? That would be the 2. Go to the 3 now. We can see that there are 4 3s, right? Right? There are 4 3s. How many 4s are there? 2. How many 5s are there? 1. Okay. The median now, be careful. I need to figure out how many pieces of data. So I'm going to go through. This is my thought process. Okay, I'm just going to label it for your sake. There are 2 1s. There are 5 2s. There are 4 3s. There are 2 4s. And there's 1 5. Add that up. 7, 11, 12, 13. There are 14 pieces of data. 14 pieces of data, right? And therefore, I'm going to have to average the 7th and the 8th. 14 pieces of data. If it were an odd number of data, we'd have a middle number. So I've got to find the 7th and the 8th. Now again, you can go low to high or high to low. Data is 1 and 2 is right there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goes to that column. So the 7th piece of data is a 2. Therefore, the 8th piece of data is right here, and it's a 3. So I've got to average a 2 and a 3. And 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And our median is 2.5. Okay, did you see how I did that? Counted how many pieces of data, and therefore then I looked for the 7th and the 8th. Now, usually you don't have this up here showing you everything because that's what the histogram does. But let's take a look. Let's look for the 7th and 8th. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's the 7th and 8th, right? Just as I said, that 2 and that 3. But again, normally you're not going to have those scores up there. You're going to have to learn how to do it from the histogram. So let me explain it one more time for you. I looked at, okay, here's the first piece of data, here's the second, here's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, here's the seventh, and here's the eighth, right? See how that works? And so I was able to average the seventh and the eighth. All right, last thing is the range. Range is easy. What's our high score? Remember, the scores are on the bottom. The highest score is a 5, the lowest score is a 1, and our range is a 4. Highest is a 5, lowest is a 4. I'm sorry, lowest is a 1, and our range is a 4, histogram. So be careful. Remember, a histogram has the frequency on the left. So the higher the column, the more frequent that score or that piece of that, excuse me. So the higher the column, so you can very easily see the mode, and you can very easily see how much you have of each piece of data. All right, let's look at the last example here. Some histograms are made from, and I'm going to use red here, interval frequency tables. From interval frequency tables. Okay, Mr. Scarfi, what do you mean by an interval? All right, well, so let's look at the bottom here. We have scores. And so again, these are going to be the scores on the bottom. Well, look at the first red column. These are scores from 20 to 30. Next to it are scores from 30 to 40. Next to that, the interval 40 to 50. You see what's happening? 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 80, 80 to 90, 90 to 100. Very, very common with grading, right? And as you can see here, in this case, the frequency is the number of students that received a score in that interval. Number of students that received a score in that interval. So we have an interval frequency table, a little bit different. Okay? So let me introduce you to a few terms here. Though we have the term mode with an interval frequency table, it's the modal, M-O-D-A-L interval. The modal interval. It's the exact same thing as the mode. What is the most often occurring interval? So you clearly go to your table and you look for the highest column. And what column is the highest for what interval? And hopefully you say, oh, that's clearly an 80 to 90 interval is the modal interval. All right, with the median, again, we're looking for a median interval. So I need a middle interval. Again, to do this, I need to figure out how many intervals there are. And so I'm going to put the number of pieces of data over top. There's 120 to 30, 230 to 40s, 140 to 50. You follow what I'm doing? All right, 250 to 60s, 6 from 60 to 70, 9 from 70 to 80, 13 from 80 to 90, and there are 5 from 90 to 100. So I need to total those up. 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. That's a 9, 21, 31, 34, 39 pieces of data. Okay, so that's important. So what's the middle piece of data? 39. So again, if you can't figure that out, you're going to have to list them out. But that is the 19th piece of data would be in the middle. Okay, the 19th piece of data. That would leave 18 on one side, 18 on the other. Am I thinking that right? Wait a minute. It's the 20th piece of data. I knew that bothered me when I said it. Let me clean this up. So that's the 20th piece of data, right? 1 through 19, then you hit the 20, and then 21 through 39 is another 19 pieces of data. So it's the 20th piece of data. You gotta be careful, right? You can just divide, if you want to, divide 39 by 2 and go to the higher data. So divide 39 by 2, and what do you get? You get 19.5. So it would be a 20. You round up to the 20 if you want to do it that way. All right. So the 20th piece of data. So again, I can go high to low or low to high. So let me start low to high. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. Okay, if the 20, if this goes through 21, then the 20th piece of data is in that interval, and the median interval is 70 to 80. 70 to 80. Now the range is exactly what you would expect. Don't worry about the intervals on the range. Take the highest piece of data, subtract from it the lowest piece of data. 100 minus 20 for a range of 80. 100 minus 20 for a range of 80. All right, an interval. The histogram with intervals a little bit different. Got to treat it a little bit differently, but the same concepts. All right, mode, median, and range. That's the idea. Those are the concepts. I hope they make sense to you, and we'll review them some in class tomorrow. All right, that's today's video. I hope you were able to watch it, and we'll work homework in class tomorrow. All right, have a great night.